guys, welcome back. Today we're going to continue our adventure looking at Jeeps by going over this 1942 Willys slat grill. This Jeep was restored in 1993. The deadline was actually Mother's Day weekend. The day after it was completed with a frame-off restoration, it was taken out to the Western Maine area and entered into the Jeep Jamboree. It was driven 86 miles on its maiden voyage to the Western Maine mountains, and it was taken on the Jeep Jamboree the very day after it was finished. It was used off-road as a trail guide Jeep for the next 10 years on the Jeep Jamboree. Cosmetically, it has not been touched since the restoration. The owner does not intend to redo the cosmetics on the Jeep. Every dent, ding, and scratch on this Jeep has a memory attached to it, and he wants to keep it that way. It is used and driven often. There is no fear of getting it in the rain or a dirt road or a muddy road. It's a very correct restoration. It does have some additional equipment that makes it easier for trail riding use or daily use. So let's do a quick walk around and then we'll get into the details. So the owner told me that they have had this Jeep into the mud so deep that it was covering the axe. They also went for a quick ride one night, you know, a half-hour trail ride, just to go out and try it out. They ended up in basically a peat bog that was so deep that the front bumper was under the grass and sod, and they actually had to cut it to get the tires to come up over it so they could get the Jeep out. And it was a little bit longer trail ride than they expected. And let's get into some details on this Jeep. You'll see this Jeep has been named Pea Soup, and you may notice the color of this Jeep is a little different than you have seen on other Jeeps. This Jeep is a 1942 Willys MB. It is a slat grill Jeep. The serial number on this Jeep is 113167. It's a January 19th of 1942 production date. And if this Jeep was to be entered into any kind of a show or a category to be judged or anything, it would be considered a motor pool class. The color of the Jeep was found up under the dash on an untouched surface. So basically it was the base color between the primer and the sheet metal up under the dash in an area that had never been touched by anyone after it was built. It is a slat grill Jeep, and as you can see, it does have the Willys style round tube radiator support cross member in the frame. This production date of Jeep would not have had a factory installed blackout drive light. As I mentioned in an earlier video doing the GPW misadventure, the steps are different on a Willys versus a Ford. So these steps are part of the body. They are not spot welded on like on the Fords. And these do have a tab. If you can see it, get the angle for you. There is a tab at the end of the step. This Jeep would have come from the factory with the rubber style hood blocks, not the wooden canvas on the later ones. It does have a cast bronze or brass windshield catch. This model should have had hand wipers and not vacuum wipers, but again, this Jeep was restored and it was a very correct restoration with some additions for ease of use or driver comfort. This, unlike the GPWs, does have the push-to-release studs instead of the capstan-style studs on the top of the windshield. This also has the Willys-style chains and retainers on the windshield knobs. It has the correct Willys early-style black all-plastic steering wheel. These did come from the factory with a keyed ignition. They also came, the Willys would have had the square fuel tank sump, unlike the rounded ones on the GPWs. Being a slat grill, it is correct for this Jeep to have the Willys embossing, if you can get that, on the back of the tub. This is also a very early Jeep. The slat grills did not have the trailer socket / receptacle. They typically would not have a fuel can bracket, again added for driver comfort This Jeep was driven off-road for many days at a time, so they wanted extra fuel with them. Let's go back to the interior here. These Jeeps, the 42 early series of the Willys, would have had a square clutch pedal, not radiused. The shift levers would typically not be tapered. This does have a GPW transmission in it. On a Willys, these shift levers would be straight all the way to the shift knob. These would typically have a small filler neck on the gas tank. This is a later style tank, and the seat has been modified as such. In the misadventure video, we outlined that the footrests are different between Willys and Fords, so these are the correct Willys style. If you view the misadventure video, you'll be able to see the correct Ford style. The toolbox area, there's a lot of differences here. Willys has a round latch area, a flat toolbox lid. This generation of the Jeep has two separate hinges on each lid. The early ones also do not have a glove box. The muffler on this Jeep would have been round from the factory. It would not be an oval one. These are the factory correct solid disc wheels. They would not have been combat wheels at this point in production. Let's go on to some details under the hood. All right, guys, let's go into some engine details on pea soup. I apologize for the setting being different, as I lost the video footage from the other day, so I'm back to reshoot the engine compartment videos on pea soup. One of the first things we'll look at is the radiator deflectors. You can see that they do have animal hair coverings on them. That's how they should be on the earlier Jeeps. Should also note that there's no vent tube between the crossover and the oil filler. That is something that was not added until the later series Jeeps. This Jeep should have a road draft tube on it. It should not have a PCV system. However, the PCV system was used on this one mostly for the off-roading and Fording. Didn't want a system that was open like the road draft tube to be able to get stuff in there. This Jeep also has a 25 amp regulator and charging system on it. The earlier 42s like this one would have the smaller pancake style air cleaner. And just another note, I know this has come up in the past, bolt heads on an earlier MB like this should have the TR20 stamped bolts. On a Ford, you'll typically see the F marked. Can also note it's got the Willys style horn bracket that does not have the dimple, which the Fords do have a dimple stamped into the horn bracket. All right, now let's take a minute to go over some of the extra added things on this Jeep and things that may have been changed for drivability or ground clearance or convenience issues. This Jeep does have an M38 style winch and cradle. It is PTO driven, and the Jeep is used for trail and road use, so that's why the winch was added. It is a correct military style cradle and winch. It's just not correct for this era of Jeep. If this Jeep did have a winch on it originally, it would have been the capstan style that ran the rope. This Jeep also has some canvas storage compartments that were added to the seat backs. Again, used off-road, driven in the trail, great place to store some stuff and a very easy way to do it without having to modify the Jeep. The antenna bracket that is on it is not correct for a slat grill. It is a correct military antenna bracket and base, and it is wired up to a CB radio. Again, used on the Jeep Jamborees and in the trail rides. Communication is key, so you needed to have a radio, and this was the best way to do it without, horribly modifying the Jeep. This Jeep also has 716 tires on it. It should have had originally come with a 616 tire. Again, a little extra ground clearance, a little bit better road manners. The fuel can bracket was also added. That would not have come on it from the factory. And again, the oval muffler versus the round muffler, just squeaking out a little bit of extra clearance so there'd be no issues going off-road. for our video today on the 1942 Willys MB. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch the video. Please like, share, subscribe, comment below if you have any questions or comments.